is Veronica. Veronica is watching Netflix at 4 a.m. When you stay up to 4 a.m. watching Netflix, you get tired. When you are tired, you fall asleep. When you fall asleep at 4 a.m., you wake up late. When you wake up late, you're late for school. When you're late for school, you have to find a way to school. When you have to find a way to school, you ask your parents for a ride. When you ask your parents for a ride, they're already gone. When your parents are already gone, you take your scooter. When you take your scooter, you run into a boy. When you run into a boy, you crash. When you crash, you break both of your arms. When you break both of your arms, you can't write. When you can't write, you can't do homework. When you can't do your homework, you get held back a grade. Don't get held back a grade. Go to bed on time. This is Vanessa. Vanessa forgot to buy milk for her cereal. When you run out of milk, you go to buy milk. When you go to buy milk, you realize you can't afford any because you're a student in college trying to save money. When you're trying to save money, you can't go hang out with your friends. Having so much fun without you! When you can't hang out with your friends, you make friends with a potato. When you make friends with a potato, it starts to rot away. When it starts to rot away, it goes to potato heaven. When it goes to potato heaven, you have a funeral for it. Don't have a funeral for a potato. Always remember to buy milk for your cereal. This is Veronica. Veronica is working out. When you work out, you get smelly. When you get smelly, you don't realize your sweat produces a toxic smell. When your body produces a toxic smell, you use your toxic smell for good and become armpit girl. When you become armpit girl, the other superheroes think you're lame. Don't be a lame superhero named armpit girl. Never work out.
What?
This is Vanessa. She is about to take a test. But Vanessa forgot a pencil. When you forget a pencil, you ask a friend, "Hey, can I borrow a pencil, please?" When you ask a friend, they get annoyed. When they get annoyed, they tell their friends, "Vanessa asked me for a pencil. She's so annoying." When they tell their friends, they get annoyed too. When they get annoyed, everyone is annoyed at you. And when everyone is annoyed at you, you have no friends. And when you have no friends, you want to run away. When you run away, you get lost. When you get lost, you don't know where you are. When you don't know where you are, you build a fort in the woods. When you build a fort in the woods, you hear things. When you hear things, you come out of the fort. When you come out of the fort, you find a bear. When you find a bear, you run away. When you run away from a bear, it follows you. When a bear follows you, it gets lost because you are lost. When you are lost with the bear, it's your only friend. When it's your only friend, you adapt to their lifestyle. When you adapt to their lifestyle, you learn the ways of a bear. When you learn the ways of a bear, you become a bear. You don't become a bear. Bring a pencil to school. This is Veronica. Veronica hasn't cleaned her room, but she is too lazy to clean it. When you are too lazy to clean your room, you trip over things. When you trip over things, you catch yourself. When you catch yourself, you realize that maybe I should clean my room. When you realize that maybe you should clean your room, you hear your mom come home from work. When you hear your mom come home from work, you know she will be mad that you haven't cleaned. When you know that she'll be mad that you haven't cleaned, you escape through the random balcony you have in your room. When you escape from the balcony, you remember that you're afraid of heights. When you're afraid of heights, you get stuck. When you get stuck, you start to panic. When you start to panic, your hands get sweaty. When your hands get sweaty, your hands start to slip. When your hands start to slip, you fall. And when you fall, you land on your driveway. When you land on your driveway, your neighbor notices. When your neighbor notices, they think you're a burglar and they call the police. When they call the police, you get arrested and have a criminal record for life. Don't have a criminal record for life. Clean your room.
That makes no sense.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and all of our other social medias. And don't let this happen to you guys. Don't become a bear like me. I had to be the bear.